Good evening. This is Bernie Lynch. Welcome to Milton Speaks. We have with us this evening the three heavy hitters of the Milton Times. Not the New York Times. It's better than the New York Times. It's the Milton Times. We have the mother of Pat Desmond here, Mary Erwin. Mary, I guess, was the real big support for Pat, but we'll let Mary talk about that. We have Pat Desmond, the publicist, the publisher of the Milton Times, and which is kind of a success story here in Milton, but she'll tell you about 5 other startups that she was involved with that maybe weren't a success. And we have Shannon Miller. If you turn into the Selectmen on Thursday nights, or whenever they're on, they seem to switch around these days. Shannon is right next to Kendra Johnson from the Ledger, and you can see Shannon taking all the notes and everything that happens at the Selectmen's meetings. And then, of course, you read about it in the paper. So Pat Desmond, welcome. Welcome aboard. And I've chatted with Pat several times. She was kind of reluctant to come on at first, but I asked her, I said, Pat, how many newspapers have started up in the last several years and have succeeded? And I think it's been 6 years?
Yeah, it's been 6 years in December, but we were actually beginning to work on it 6 years ago in the fall.
I can remember some people in the town saying that paper will never succeed, but I read it all the time.
Many people do read it all the time.
4,000 plus people read it all the time, which is great. What about these 5 startups that you were involved with? Of other papers that maybe didn't succeed, maybe, or did some of them succeed?
Most of them are still alive. Back in the 1980s, I was working at Mariner Newspapers, which is a chain of weekly newspapers that began out of Marshfield, and I was there during a very aggressive time at that paper. Where they were starting up the Hingham Mariner, the Hanover Mariner, the South Shore Business Journal, which wasn't such a success, although I think it might still exist in some form. But what always worked is if you get to know the community really well and you're able to reflect what's going on in the community and get the support of a community behind you, to be able to give them a voice. It works here, and it will work in other places.
And of course, with the Desmond name, I think when you started, Frank, your brother, was on the school committee and well-known, well-liked. And of course, Trace Sills, which her maiden name was Desmond, she's really great. She does a great job up there at the cemetery and so forth. And I know at the beginning your mother, Mary, came in and helped an awful lot, put in some weird hours, and she realized that there'd be no monetary gain for her, but of course it would take care of you. So, Mary, can you speak about the early years, which is, I guess, is only 6 years ago?
Yes, it all started on her dining room table in her house. And we used to cut and paste and put all the ads together, and I would do the typing. And then I was called upon to do proofreading, which was, she finally put me in as a proofreader. And the only boo-boo was that the first paper that was published had a spelling error on one of the headlines on the front page.
I think I recall
So everyone
that.
blamed me for it.
Well, you were the typist.
No, I was the proofreader.
Well, the
went through many hands.
Her friends teased her about it, but newspapers make mistakes. If you find,
I would be mortified. She just overlooked it, didn't bother her at all. She's done very well.
I don't see too many corrections in your paper.
Not now. We got Shannon.
I try to catch them all now, so even the computer too, that helps. So.
Although we did spell Israeli wrong on the front page last week, and yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I mean, little things get by. We don't correct it if it's just a misspelling. People can figure out what the word was. most of the time. But yeah, if we have something actually wrong, yeah, we'll run a correction, which not all papers will do that.
Yeah, I don't see much. Occasionally I see it. I know the Globe, I see it a lot, you know. And,
Yeah, they make more mistakes than most.
well, you know, the thing about your paper, and as a matter of fact, Marion, the producer, who was my wife, who's behind the camera here, one of the cameras, she does a lot of reading, but when she can't wait, we don't get your paper till Friday, incidentally.
Right, and that's because of the post office. It takes them 24 hours to process it. You know, we deliver it Thursday morning. Actually, I don't deliver it. A truck delivers it. But in the early days, we had to go down, pick it up. At that time, it was being printed in Hanover. And we'd bring the whole thing back and spread it out on my living room floor.
That's why Muri's got those big muscles.
Yeah, and get it ready for the post office. But
Well, you know, Marion, of course, she loves the paper. She's involved, and she's a town meeting member, and of course, she hears me talk about things at the dinner table and so forth. But she likes the paper. One of the reasons is because it seems to fit in your hand so nicely. It's not, you know, and of course, we have 2 dogs, and they'd be into the paper, and how did you arrive at that, the size of the paper?
That was her idea.
well, and also because it was really the only thing we could do when we began. The technology has come very far in the past few years, but when we began, we were actually using 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper and putting them on a printer sideways. So, you know, if you take 2 8.5 by 11 sheets and put them on one, they call them boards, but they're not, they're just pieces of cardboard, you can put together a tabloid-sized paper. And I knew that because I knew other papers that had done it. It's an extremely low-cost way. And at that time, we were just using an inkjet printer. Our pictures were horrible.
Did you have to set type?
Oh yeah, we set it all on computer. Yeah.
Now what do you do, Shannon? Oh, you're doing it on computer now?
Yeah.
Type
Yes,
it into
it's
the
all in
computer.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
But it's changed. I mean, Shannon can tell you about that, about how she produces
well,
it.
I know she produces the index. I wish we could get a shot of the index, but it's like editorials, letter to the editor, you know, commentary. But just back to the selectmen for a minute.
Sure.
Some of those meetings are long.
They can be long. Actually, it's been nice. This summer they were shorter than they have been, but now we're getting back into longer meetings. Just, you know, everyone's back in town and business is on as usual, so.
We don't see much citizens speak, do we? People, I mean, there's a lot of issues in the town, but
Right.
but people don't seem to come in and avail themselves of that minute before.
Right. It's very rare. There have been a few people that have come in recently, but I was there for, I would say, a good month before someone came in for Citizen Speak. So that would be about 4 or 5 meetings. And I didn't know what it was. I'd always seen it on the agenda, but I didn't know that people actually came in to speak. I thought it was great when someone did come in, but I do wish that people would come in more often to the meetings, because I think it's a great forum. And I don't know if too many people are aware of it, but.
That's because she's young. And she doesn't mind the late night meetings. Some more older people.
Fall asleep, you mean?
If
we
it
could
goes-
see it dozing every so often when you used to handle that pass.
If it goes on after 10 o'clock, it's just too much after you've worked all day.
Charlie seems to run a very business-like, just like Rick Neely, and as a matter of fact, Marion did when she was, you know, the chair. But like in this program here, and we've even stopped mentioning it, at the beginning and the end of each one of our programs, we would tell people, if you have an issue and you want to come in here and just talk a minute or two, we had a chair set up over there with a mic on it. I mean, there's school issues and, you know, there's all kinds of issues, but I don't know why people, they'll write a letter, but they don't want to get out and stick their face in the public and, you know, talk about issues. I think they'd prefer to do it from the background and not even sign things anonymously, you know. I mean, if you believe in something, you should be willing to go out there and you know, put your name on it and talk about it. That's what this government is about. As a matter of fact, we just had the library trustees on before you, and the library trustees back in 1902 talked about the same issues that the library trustees now are talking about. They were going to close the child's reading room, and they had to go to the warrant committee. I mean, it was... Well, Shannon, you know, with this index, like letters to the editor, a letter comes in, and how do you choose a letter that... a particular letter from the editor? If they were not signed, then you probably...
Right. Well, everything needs to be signed with a phone number before it's even considered. And Pat actually looks through everything that comes in, and then it kind of moves through different phases. It comes to the inbox, then it will move to a folder that says it's ready to be typed or scanned. So Pat usually has the first say. You know, she sees everything first before we even get to it. So she just kind of looks it over and then passes it on. And then, you know, we'll do the typing or the scanning, and then Pat will have the final say when she edits the folders before I get them back on Monday, to be placed in the paper. So,
can you go over any content, like if, because if someone tells someone to go shove it, that's not going to be in the paper. But can you take some like literary license and? I read someplace where some papers do that. They reserve the right to make the letter more acceptable, not changing topics, but. Or do you just print it?
We edit it.
right.
And I've had a lot of people complain about the fact that their letter doesn't run exactly the way it was written. We edit it for space. You know, there are some people who will write 3 pages, single spaced. And, you know, it may be possible to get that in, but it's unlikely. But more than that, people will say things in a letter to the editor that are their opinion, but sometimes they'll go a little too far and say something that, if they really had the evidence, would probably look at it and use it.
Yeah,
but if they don't, we'll chop it out.
well, you know, the what's it? Is it called the Fourth Estate or the Fifth Estate? The Fourth Estate.
Fourth estate.
I can remember. I think it was Thomas Jefferson said that if we had a choice between democracy and the Fourth Estate, that he would choose the Fourth Estate because you're the people that report things honestly. I'm sure a lot of papers do that. And if it wasn't for people like you and Kendra Johnson and the other newspaper in the town at these meetings, you know, so the public knows. I know when we see the newspaper in the audience on the planning board, you kind of rise to a higher occasion. You know, you might not tell jokes, and so you keep us honest, and it's a great medium. It is. The Eddie Baker column, but also with the Eddie Baker column, not roses and onions, we'll get to that, but bits and pieces. The bits and pieces I love. It's quick reading, and too bad you couldn't, because Eddie Baker is like bits and pieces. I know Shannon wants to tell us about Eddie Baker's stuff that you can tell.
Yeah. Well, I know Eddie Baker's column pretty well. I type it every week, so it comes in as 15 handwritten pages, and I love writing it because it's a real personable column, and it really it just really gets to the heart, I think, of what our readers want. A lot of our readers want. So it's great to be able to put his column in paper because it really, you know, I think it's what people want to read, and it's a lot like bits and pieces. It's just little tidbits here and there, and you know, a little mention for someone here, and
that's it.
It's great. It's, you know, you really get to know what Eddie's thinking and who he's interacting with, and it's great. I love it. So.
But it's sort of typical about Milton. Eddie has written a column for, I don't know, 25 years?
30 years.
30 years.
We interviewed him.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, he sat in that chair.
Until he wrote for the Milton Times, no one knew his name.
Right.
Because he wrote a column, it was called Follow the Stars, and it was an anonymous column.
That's right.
And now his friends knew he wrote it, but
He talked about that on the show. Sam Brogner was involved, and But he was very nice talking about the other paper, but he would prefer to go to your paper because I guess he had, he could do more things. And we were chatting that he's now writing about grandfathers. He wrote about the son,
Right.
Yep.
the grandson, or the father, the son, and now the grandson. And yeah, he was in here one night. It was unbelievable. We had a blinding snowstorm outside, and he was lucky to make it because he lives close by. The roses and onions. That's you can really take a jab at someone. Thank God my name. I don't think I've ever seen my name on it.
Well,
At least not for
actually,
onions.
Yeah. I kept hearing from people that they thought the Milton Times was too Pollyanna. And when I began the paper, I did say that I was not going to criticize anything in the town for the first year of existence.
Oh.
And I meant that. You know, I don't think you should come in, you know, and start tearing things apart before you've done your research. And I had certainly seen that there'd been quite enough of that happening, of, you know, a tearing apart that, and criticism that wasn't always well thought out. And yeah, so my onions, I don't give a lot of the onions. Mostly I give roses. But I do think it's important to be able to say, you know, not everything is perfect. This isn't a bowl of cherries here. And there's a lot that's good. And, you know, I'm much more apt to give onions to the MWRA, to Mass Port Authority, you know, to these anonymous bureaucracies that seem to be asking for it.
That's right.
Than to an individual. I mean, it would take a lot before I would give one to an individual.
Well, you know, when you see, because I have several Milton Times here, but if your name appears in that onions and roses, and like, for instance, if it's the Onion, you don't have to say much. All you have to say is, you know, onions to Bernie Lynch, you know, on the Milton Planning Board. You know, you've said very little, but you really said a lot, you know.
Well, if you get that hood building accomplished, nobody will ever give you onions, Bernie. You know,
Roses every week.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. It's, something's going to happen very quick.
Yeah. No, people want to see the tax burden lifted. They want to see.
I love paying taxes. Marion pays all the taxes. But no, that's true. It's great. I wish the bits and pieces. I can remember a long time ago, Doris Lane. Do you remember Doris? Doris was the Milton record, and she was like the social editor. You have Hilda Morrill now.
Yes, we have Hilda.
Yeah.
She's great.
I wish she'd come into Milton a little. I mean, she's talking about outside Milton, but this Doris Lane would talk about Marion Lynch had twins and you know, stuff like that. It was
Gossipy stuff.
gossipy was right, yeah. And you'd always grab Doris and what's new.
Well, actually, many of my columnists used to write for the very old paper that had been owned by the Pollock family.
Oh,
Susan
yeah,
Pollock.
Harry Howard, yeah.
Yep, and had things had changed when Susan and her husband retired and moved on, and Hilda was one of those people. She had written a scene. I think it was, I forget what hers was called actually, but she had done one. When I started, I went out and sought out people who knew the town, people who were writing or who had written, and talked to them and said, I have no money. If you want to write for me, I'd love to see it. And, you know, can you help me? And most of them said, yeah. You know, and, you know, Eddie held out for the big bucks, you know.
Well, you know, Harry Howard, we built a building in the town many years ago, and Harry Howard came to us, and even before the building was built, and he said, I'll take office space in that building. And as a result of Harry Howard signing a letter of commitment. We got money from a bank and we built a building. And we had them in our building. We sold the building a few years ago, but the Milton record, they were great. Of course, Harry died, or sold it, I guess, to the Pollocks. That's his daughter.
Yeah.
And it was a great paper. Well, the new paper in town, well, I shouldn't say the new paper in town, but the Milton record moved out of that building, moved across the street, and we've been trying so hard to get them to like to help you asking candidates questions. You come in all the time with Kendra Johnson, but for some reason or other they won't seem to participate. But we'll still continue to ask, and hopefully they'll come in and do some of these shows and so forth.
Well, that's why I picked Milton as a town to open a paper in. You know, as I said, I have been part of other weeklies starting in other places, and
I'm beginning to get a tickle.
you need to find a place if you're going to open a paper on a low budget where the needs of the community aren't being met, where people can't get heard. You know, I print letters, as long as they're not libelous, that totally criticize what has been said or what I believe in.
Yeah, it's an excellent forum. You've just you print now in out in Natick.
Yeah, way out there. I'm printed by Community Newspaper Company. They're a huge conglomerate because a little weekly paper can't afford its own press. The press is a couple $1 million. So you job that part of the work.
I thought you had that. I mean, that palatial place you live in. And you're about to enter into, or you have entered into another situation where it might make your paper even more exciting with that's to come. We won't tell the people, we'll just have them keep buying it until they...
Well, yeah, it's a great thrill because the advertising is going to be going up in a recession. Super.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we just got 2 fingers, that means 2 minutes. We've done several shows this evening, so we're getting kind of slap happy. But, well, this is great. Buy that Milton Times, and if you don't subscribe to it, try it. I mean, try the other newspaper too, but try the Milton Times. I think you'll like it. It's easily readable, and you can, I think I probably have every edition back at the house. It's a great reference manual. I can check things and check legal notices that have appeared before and so forth, and I can check up on Shannon to make sure that that she's doing things, and of course, Mary, I wasn't aware of your involvement, Mary, and so you should be thanked. And so,
well, I think Pat has done a wonderful job with the paper. I really do. She deserves a lot of credit.
I heard she might be expanding into Quincy, or maybe
I don't
Derbyshire.
think so. But I think everyone that reads it enjoys it because it's a newsy paper. It's not just a gossip sheet. It's a newsy paper.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. So
Actually, just in case Henry Bosworth ever hears this, he's the man who owns the Quincy paper.
Oh, no, I was only joking.
I used to work for Henry years ago.
Well, for Shannon Miller and Mary Erwin and Pat Desmond, this is Bernie Lynch from Milton Speaks, and thanks for coming, kids.
Thank you.
Tune in next time.
Thanks, Bruce.
What a quick half hour.